Since 1999, 99% of the counties in this country have been affected by a disaster.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Master Captain Angie Scott.
Welcome back to the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast. I'm your host, Angie Scott, and today we have an incredible guest joining us who is truly making waves in the world of disaster preparedness. Janet Rosenthal, the visionary CEO and co-founder of Natural Disaster Survival Products.com, is here to share her wealth of knowledge and experience. Janet's passion for helping others stay safe during natural disasters have driven her to create innovative survival products and foster a culture of preparedness and resilience. In this episode, we'll dive into Janet's journey, discuss essential items for your emergency kit, and hear some remarkable stories from her 10-plus years in the industry. Get ready for an enlightening conversation that could make a big difference in how you prepare for the unexpected. Let's jump right in with Janet Rosenthal. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast. This week, we're covering an important topic, and I know some of you are very interested. We've even got some listener questions that we'll save toward the end, but we're going to be talking about natural disaster survival products. And I have the co-founder of Natural Disaster Survival Products.com with me today. Janet Rosenthal, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so let's kick off. If you could just give our listeners a little bit about your background and what inspired you to enter into this space.
Well, my background is I grew up on the East Coast in New York. I got my master's at NYU, and I worked for ABC News back in the day. And then I moved out to California, and was married, had children, and went through the severe drought that California went through in the teens, like in 2015 to 2018 or 19, whatever it was. And so the fires started happening, and one situation, and it was always on the TV, like these just fires were out of control. They can move at a football field a second, the pace that rapidly when there's kindling, and it is overwhelming to people, and it kills people. And I remember this one man in Shasta County. I don't know if you remember this story, but it was devastating. He was a great grandfather. He was raising his great grandchildren, and with his wife. And he had to go to the doctor that morning. And he knew that there were fires, but he didn't think it would get to his house. And then when he was done with his doctor's appointment, his wife called him and the grandchildren, and he described it as they were screaming for him to come save them because the fire was encroaching. And he couldn't save them, obviously. But I just thought at that point, this man is going to be suffering every day for the rest of his life, with that in his head. And so I was trying to think of how to not die in a wildfire, because it is so amazing. It's like they create their own environments. They suck all the oxygen out of the air. They, radiant heat and it's the toxic smoke. It's just such a deadly thing. And then, so that started me thinking. And then later on in that year, I think it was 2018, there was the Woolsey fire in Malibu, which is near where I live. And I live on a hill and can look down over the valleys, and my three children it was at night in my room looking out at the mountains and the valley, and you can't really tell how far away the fire is at that point. And they were scared, and they said, what are we going to do? What would we do if the fire came here? And so that really got me thinking, and I came up with the idea of going underground, and I did research, and I found out that in Australia they create these bunkers that they put underground for people to survive a wildfire. You go in the bunker, you seal yourself off, and the fire passes over you, and then you can emerge. And they are effective. They have saved lives. And I did have trouble getting traction with that concept, but it got me starting to sell fire protective equipment like fire escape masks, because 80% of people who die in a fire will die from smoke inhalation.
Mm.
And I also sell the U.S. Forestry Service's fire shelters, which are used by firemen and do require training. And you can train yourself. There's plenty of videos on YouTube and whatnot to train yourself. But if you're in a high-risk fire zone and an urban wildland interface, you're going to want something as a last resort to help protect you. And so I do supply that to people. And then you just, California gets started improving because we got major rains, but it just all these other natural disasters that really impact families, and they just can devastate people. And so I just went with my party. We went about finding solutions to different types of natural disasters, and that's what we have now: a site with pretty comprehensive tools that will help you survive flooding, fire, contaminated water, things like that. And and also to allow you to evacuate safely. So we put a lot of focus in on our go bags, and our best go bag for families is the Mama Bear Essentials Survival Essentials Kit, which has very much in mind parents who have kids and they have to go to evacuation shelter, or they just have to get out and find some place to go. And so with that, we have like a blanket, electric blanket, tools to keep you warm. And if you don't mind, can I go into some of this?
Yeah. Well, before we jump into the products, I did want to just kind of, actually, that was my next thing that we're going into. But when you were talking about the wildfires, it actually brought back a memory I hadn't thought about for a long time. But I grew up in Minnesota, and I actually remember as a kid there were a couple instances where we had some, really dry conditions, and some wildfires that were like, I think this happened once or twice. When I was a kid, that there were some wildfires that were getting close to our house, and I remember how I felt, helpless and scared. And
Right.
I remember my mom getting the garden hose out and just wetting the side of our yard as some type of precaution or barrier or whatever. So yeah, I can definitely see how that would have prompted you to start thinking about what products that you could sell that would help people in those situations. So I can relate to that.
Yeah. Well, the wildfires are just, like I said, they're their own. They are overwhelming. They are just this powerhouse of energy, and it tears through. It's just incredible what they can do and the destruction that they cause.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so let's do a deep dive into the disaster preparedness and talk about the essential kits that you guys provide. Can you just kind of go through some of the items, maybe like the top 10 items that everyone should have in an emergency kit?
yes. Now, there are items that we don't supply that I would like to cover, because you should have them if you want to make recovery easier.
Mm-hmm.
And that is you want to take your prescription medications with you. You want to have your eyeglasses with you, or contact lenses. You want to have car keys. So you keep an extra set in your go bag.
Okay.
And the importance of having a go bag readily accessible by your door, or in the closet, wherever you can, where you can just grab it and go, and that you have what you need, is the biggest difference in the world. So you want to keep extra set of car keys, some credit cards or cash, things like that. And then other things like a first aid kit and flashlight. We have all that stuff. We have better versions, we think, than most kits. But also copies of your important documents, like your birth certificate or your passport. Just things that you will need to verify that your home is your home if it burns down. Just those types of things that can prove that you don't have to go through, the Office of Vital Records or something like that to get your life back together. You want to have all this stuff readily accessible in your bag, or at least copies
Gotcha.
of them.
Interesting.
That
Yeah,
will make all the difference.
stuff I hadn't thought about that would be very important to have.
Yeah, because rebuilding, if you are not prepared, is burdensome. It is a real burden. But if you have what you need to make things easier, it really makes all the difference in the world. So you want to know who your insurance company is and all that stuff. You want to have it readily available.
Gotcha.
But the other things that we have in our kit that I think are extremely important. One thing is the fire escape mask. And that is because, and you should have one for each person in your family in your kit, because smoke is deadly. 80% of people who die in a fire will die from smoke inhalation. So you want to avoid that at all costs. And the fire escape masks that we have will take all of the particulates, all of the gases, all of the stuff that can kill you out of the smoky air, and just give you clean air to breathe through this filter that is built into it. So that's big for us. Ideally, you want a 3-day supply of non-perishable food and 3 gallons of water per person. I think this is like a standard thing from FEMA. I think that that's impractical because not too many people are going to be able to carry 3 gallons of water per person. That's a lot. So we have a water filter that you just let the water pass through, even if it's just water from a lake, and it will make it drinkable. It'll take out all the particulates and things like that, and give you healthy water to drink. So that's very important. We also have a multifunctional tool that has a can opener, a corkscrew, fork and knife and spoon, just so you can open up cans of tuna or whatever you have, just to keep your family sustained. And you can do it independently. Another thing that we think is incredibly important is to be able to live off grid for as long as you need. So a lot of the products that we have in our Mama Bear Survival Essentials kit, and you also can make your own go bag. We have all the tools, but is you have an electric blanket because your kids are going to be cold and they're going to want to be warm, and so that will help them. And it's USB chargeable. We have an AM/FM NOAA radio that will keep you informed if the cell towers go down, so you can at least get information about what's going on. And that is a multifunction. All of our tools are multifunctional. So that AM/FM radio also serves as a flashlight, also serves as a reading light, and also serves as a charger for your cell phone or whatever. Nice. We have also a portable solar power bank. I'm sorry. The AM/FM radio is also solar powered. You can recharge it with sun. Nice. We have our solar power bank that can charge up to 5 devices at once, and will recharge the bank with just solar. So it has a panel that's built into it. And you need to have. The reality is, when you have kids or little kids, you're going to want to keep them occupied, and you're going to want to keep their phones or their iPads charged, because that'll make things calmer. Realistically. So our AM/FM radio will charge it. Our flashlight is another multifunctional thing that will charge your phone, but it also has extremely high power, and it also flashes on and off to get attention. We feel like a survival whistle is vital because it's piercing, and you can get help because you can't always call. So if you can blow the whistle, get help, you can recover that way. We also supply a blow-up mattress because you need to sleep. And so we have the survival poncho, the survival tent. All of these keep heat and keep you warm, so that with your heating blanket you can be somewhat comfortable and get a good night's sleep, because that's critical as you're dealing with this crises. That's basically what we have. We have a backpack that can hold a lot of things, but because of the multifunctionality of everything that we have, it doesn't weigh any more than 15 pounds. So you can transport it easily. Nice.
I was going to ask how much that weighs. I'm looking at the picture of it on the website right now. So yeah, just typical size backpack, nothing outrageous.
It's a 45-liter backpack, so it's a good size. But yep. I have mine here, and I can wear it, and I can run with it, even with all the stuff in it.
Nice. Want to learn about fishing, hunting, and outdoor gear from fellow experienced outdoor women, as well as get inspired to try something new in the outdoors? Then subscribe to Adventurous, the only women's hunting and fishing magazine. Adventurous is a high-quality print magazine that receives rave reviews, and it also makes a great gift for other outdoor women and youth. Subscribe at Adventurous Magazine and use code WOMANANGLER for 15% off. Well, very cool. That's that would be an important product to have. Where do you recommend people like keep something like that? Do you keep it in your vehicle? Do you should you have maybe a couple of them, one for your home, one for your vehicle? What do you recommend
You
there?
you could ideally, but what I do personally is I have mine by the front door on a hook.
Okay,
So I have hooks for coats, and so I keep it there.
gotcha.
When I go on trips, I definitely take it with me because living in California or anywhere now, you just don't know what's going to happen. So if I get caught stuck in my car for whatever reason, the flood or whatever, I have everything I need to keep warm, drink clean water, communicate, and clean myself, take care of any wounds, first aid, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Cool. Well, let's go a little bit beyond the basics. What advanced survival gear do you recommend for families that live in high risk areas?
Well, the more advanced gear would be something like the fire shelter, the portable fire shelter used by. But I want to stress that you need to train yourself on how to use that. But advanced gear, like emergency communication devices, you can get walkie-talkies, things like that, because if the cell towers go down, you still want to be able to communicate. We have walkie-talkies that can work for 10 miles. So you can keep that as a backup to keep in touch with your family.
Gotcha.
You have to sort of think, if I'm off grid, what do I need without a lot of pain points? Because the goal of our Mama Bear Survival Kit is to remove the pain points of evacuation.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you have all that on the website. Have there been any like recent innovations in any of the disaster survival products that you feel like are game changers?
I think that enabling solar into all of these devices is incredibly helpful, because it will allow you can charge your devices during the day, and then if you need them at night, you'll still have enough power in your power banks or your flashlight or whatever you got to recharge. So I think that the solar enablement is critical.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's great to build that into your products, because if you don't have anywhere to charge anything, and these days it's like everything we have needs to be charged in order to work. So what about batteries? Are people still using like batteries and things? Is that something maybe you should have on hand?
Yes is the quick answer, but all of our products can work without batteries.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
they don't last forever anyway, so
they don't last forever, but they all can take batteries, not the flashlight, but like the radio can take batteries, but you don't need it.
Gotcha.
Because the radio you can hand crank if you need to get more power, or put it in the sun if you need to get more power. So
yeah, and you mentioned, kids, some ideas and things that can help with kids, keeping them occupied, keeping them warm and comfortable. What about pets? What do you recommend for people with pets?
Oh, so I have, and I haven't put it on the website yet, but I have this container that you put the food on one side and then a small amount of water on the other side. So you can feed your pet and give him water just with that little container. But for long term, you definitely need to, like, if you're gone for a week, you need to. I don't have enough space to provide enough pet food for a week, but you can at least seek out food for your pet. Mm-hmm. But clean water is always essential, and that's why that filter is so essential.
Yeah. Let's hop into a couple of the questions that I had from some of our listeners. We might have already covered a lot of this stuff. One person asked, how many days worth of food, water, medication do you recommend that we stock up on? Is it about a week, do you think, or what do you?
Well, it depends on what your situation is, really, truly, and you really have to think out. Like me personally, I could go to a shelter,
Mm-hmm.
so I would have enough snacks to last me maybe 2 or 3 days. 3 days is considered the norm. Like that's what FEMA would recommend. But if you're in a place and you know that you're going to be stuck for a week or longer, if you're in a remote area, then you're going to plan for what your real world situation is going to be like. So I should have mentioned this earlier. So much of this really preparing to survive requires preparation.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have evacuation routes planned out. You need to have, a place for the family to meet. It's just a plan, and everyone needs to be in on the plan because that takes the stress out. If everyone knows what they're supposed to do, it takes so much stress away.
Yeah, and it looks like you've got a very handy checklist, emergency supply kit checklist of a lot of these items that you mentioned, even like the birth certificate, passports, those type of documents. So I'll put a link directly to that checklist in the show notes for this episode so everybody can go and take a look at that. Um, is there anything, this was another question, anything like uncommon that people might not think about? I think for me, definitely the birth certificate type stuff I didn't really think about having in an emergency kit. Is there anything else that people that you find don't typically think about when they're planning for this type of event?
The way I have approached this is to think about essential human needs and what products fulfill them
Mm-hmm.
with the fewest amount of pain points. So, I mean, I think that providing yourself with an electric blanket is a really good idea because you can be freezing, and
Yeah.
you would have a source of warmth, as
Yeah,
you
I
would with.
didn't even know they had electric blankets that you can charge or power with a USB, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's a great blanket, very soft and fuzzy. Um,
It's
Kids would
important.
love it. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
very cool. Very cool. And then one more question we had, and I thought this was an interesting one. I was curious to know as well. In your experience, being in the natural disaster industry, um, is there somewhere that people can live where you're less likely to experience a natural disaster? Obviously, we hear about California all the time, but are there areas in your experience where it's not as common?
Well, I'll tell you this: since 1999, 99% of the counties in this country have been affected by a disaster.
Wow.
So, no, I can't. I mean,
Yeah. You can't escape
I,
it.
maybe in New York City, you could live in an apartment and scroll yourself away. I don't know. But for most people, you just don't know what's going to happen. You could have a train derailment contaminating your water supply. You could have flooding that brings sludge and whatnot to your property. So there's just so many different types of disasters, and that's my website covers fire, flood, clean water, electric power, all the different disasters that it gives you off-grid ways to deal with them so that you can thrive in a disaster.
Gotcha. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I hope it's lit a spark in people to if you don't have anything, a go bag or anything like that prepared or a plan, to go to the website, check out the resources there, check out the products, and get prepared because you just never know what's going to happen. It might, in this day and age with political climates and all the things going on, it might not be a wildfire, but it might be something totally different that you'd need to have something like this prepared. So
Yeah,
um,
you don't want to be caught off guard, really. You
yeah,
want to have a plan
yep,
for anything. If your people want to come to the website and you feel confused or you don't understand or you want to make modifications that aren't there, please call us. We are here to help. We have an 888 number, a toll-free number that you can call, and we are happy to provide you with whatever information you want. We really care about our customers' survival.
Awesome.
Do
Well,
you want me to give that number?
yeah, if you could.
Sure. It's 888-877-3475.
Gotcha. Well, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's important to know. And any other closing thoughts or anything upcoming that you want to mention?
We most recently have embarked in the area of flood prevention,
Mm.
because even an inch of water can cause over $25,000 worth of damage to your property.
Oh, wow.
Flooding is the worst. So we have some really great products to keep water from getting inside of your home or your business. And we're going to be adding more products to that. So that's
Very
something
cool.
to look out for.
Very cool. Yeah, I've known a lot of friends that have been affected by the flooding just recently. So that's great to know as well.
And I'll offer you one more thing,
Yep.
because when the power goes out, it's such a pain. So we have tools to help you live off grid, portable power station, things like that. We also have the Jack on Lux rechargeable light bulbs, so that if the light goes out, your lamps are still going to stay on. I have them in all of my lamps throughout my house. So when the
Nice.
electricity goes out, we don't miss a beat. The lights go on. So that's
Nice.
something I think everyone, if you want to, again, a pain point is to not be able to see and lighting candles and using, it's such a drag. So if you can just keep your lights on, the Jack on Lux are a great solution for you. And we sell those for a very competitive price.
Very cool. Yeah, they're right now $10. That's not bad at all. I didn't even know that product existed. So
Oh, they are great. I love when the lights go out, because my lamps are all on and my neighbors can see that.
yeah, and they're LED as well. So awesome.
Right.
Good
Yeah.
to know. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to be on the podcast.
Oh,
And
it's my pleasure. I appreciate it. Thank you.
yep, it was great.